Good evening, everyone. I didn't realize that we are already on the 7th of our series on the productivity. So we have covered quite a lot of topics, and I think it is time to also talk about 5S because 5S recently has become very popular and majority of the businesses want to adopt this system. Traditionally, 5S has been defined as a system for organizing spaces so work can be performed efficiently, effectively, and also safely. Many also have been referring it to also as a good housekeeping system. So this system or 5S basically focuses on putting everything where it belongs and keeping the workplace clean, which makes it easier for people to do their job without wasting time or risking injuries. Today, we are going to focus on 5S and understand whether the 5S means only organizing spaces for efficiency or is it way beyond that as well. So let me share my screen. Okay. Is it visible now? Okay. So some background on 5S. It actually originated in Japan, and Western world first heard about it as one of the techniques that enabled the just-in-time manufacturing. JIT became very popular at one time, and 5S was the core to that. Okay. It was first implemented in the Toyota Motor Corporation with intentions to produce only the amount of a product that is needed and when it is needed. So that was the whole approach about the 5S. Having an organized workplace that utilizes visual cues to maintain itself also allows the JIT manufacturing to proceed more smoothly. In this type of environment, it is easier to see problems and move materials efficiently. So 5S methodology is basic foundational element of lean practices overall. Okay. While it is necessary to have a quick primer on 5S, we will today also focus on how 5S contributes to stability in lean management. What are the lean principles and can you map them to 5S? And how do you apply 5S for improving productivity? So that's going to be the overall canvas on which we will be discussing it out. Okay. So as I said earlier, 5S has been part of Toyota production system and it consists of the 5 S's. Okay. Each S has a different connotation and these 5s are sort, second order, shine, standardize and sustain. Okay. We will try to understand the normally understood meaning of these 5 S's and their purposes. And then later on, we will also see how the 5S can be used as part of lean principles for productivity. Okay. So what is 5S? In a very simple terms, it is an improvement tool which helps businesses to organize and maintain a disciplined and productive workplace. A disciplined workplace automatically creates better and safe working environment. And today, 5S is applied not just for manufacturing facilities, but people have applied it as 5S for offices, 5S for IT, maintenance, stores, warehouses, and so on and so forth. So 5S is no longer just restricted to only manufacturing facilities today. Okay. 5S is also a core lean principle and practices. It also provides a stability to the house of lean. And this concept of house of lean is something which we'll see in a short while. We will discuss that as well. 5S helps in increasing employee engagement. And I'm sure everyone understands that employee engagement is extremely critical to make the lean tools work consistently. Okay. It also aids in the standardization at workplace in several ways. Okay. So let's look into each of these 5 S's one by one. I'll be very brief over here because I'm sure that most of you know about what are these 5 S's and you may be rather more anxious to know that how we can use it for the productivity. So quickly going through the 5 S's, the first S, sort. This means sorting through all items in a location and removing unnecessary items from the location. This practice helps you to determine what you need and remove everything else. It also focuses on removing clutter, accumulation, and junk, segregating everything in orderly manner for identifying its purposes and utility. It also helps in reducing time losses looking for an item by reducing number of items, simplifying inspection, and increasing the amount of available and useful spaces. Okay. So that's what the sort does. The next is, before we move to the next S, we also introduce another practice called the red tagging. So red tagging is a process by which all unwanted or unusable material identified in the sorting process is tagged and removed to a red tag area. Okay. This ensures that unwanted and unusable items are not impacting the actual work, and these items can be safely considered for any kind of a disposal, recycling, or repurposing going forward. Okay. So that's a process which we introduce in between after the sorting. The second S is set in order. So set in order is, in short, putting all necessary items in the optimal place for fulfilling their function in the workplace. It focuses on setting all the items in the industry into a certain place where the workers can simply find them. Okay, it's very easy to find them. In other words, keep needed items only in the correct place for easy and immediate retrieval. That's what the set in order does. This also helps in making the workflow smooth and easy. The next one is shine. Shine is usually associated with sweeping or cleaning and inspecting the workplace, tools, machinery on a regular basis. Okay. It not only helps in keeping the workplace neat and clean, it also involves performing regular maintenance on equipment and machinery. Shine improves the production process efficiency and safety. It reduces waste and prevents error and defects. Okay. So it is not just all about keeping everything neat and clean. It's also all about how do you improve the efficiencies of your equipment and reduce the wastages and prevent the errors and defects. The fourth one is standardize. This method is to standardize the process used to sort, order, and clean the workspace. It systemizes everything that has just happened and turns one-time efforts into habits. In other words, it is a method by which sort, straighten, and shine are made habitual. Okay. Standardize assigns regular tasks, create schedules, and post instructions so that there are activities, and these activities become the routines. They no longer remain a one-time event or a short-term project only. Okay. So a standardized method establishes procedures and schedules to ensure the repetition of the first three as practices. There's the standardize. The fifth one and the last S is sustain. Anything which we do has to be sustained. Okay? So this is the process of keeping practices running smoothly and also keeping everyone involved in the organization. Okay? It is all about sustaining and developed processes by self-discipline of the workers. If any sustenance practice has to be persuaded from the top down on a constant basis, then it will not survive on its own. The day the pressure from the management is off, the sustenance will go off. So it's very important that the self-discipline of the workers come in and they rather drive these practices and sustain them. Okay. This method also ensures that the 5S approach is followed consistently, and it is all about making any initiative a long-term program and not just an event or a short-term project. Okay. So these are the 5 S's which we talked about. Okay. Now let's spend a few moments understanding what is lean manufacturing, because that's another word which is moving around and everybody wants to establish the lean manufacturing. There is another term which a lot of people use. People talk about business excellence, people talk about operations excellence, people talk about manufacturing excellence, right? We will not go into those topics, but let's understand the lean manufacturing as a baseline to start with. Okay. So what is lean manufacturing? It's a methodology that focuses on minimizing waste within manufacturing system while simultaneously maximizing productivity. Waste is seen as anything that customers do not believe adds value and are not willing to pay for. Okay. So anytime a customer doesn't want to pay for anything, that's a non-value added activity done in the manufacturing. Okay. This lean manufacturing is again based upon the Toyota lean production system, which was established long time back. And the house of lean shown over here, which we have shown here, the bottom part has got the 2 foundations, and the first foundation is stability, second foundation is the standardization. It also has 2 major pillars. One is just in time and the second is JITOCO. The roof is the customer focus. That's what the lean management system is all about. How to maintain a focus on customers and bring the satisfaction to the customers. Just in time refers to the continuous flow, tech time calculations, and pull system, while the Jidoka refers to quality at source. So this is what the house of lean talks about. In between the just in time and Jidoka, we also have the collaboration, we have the best practices, continuous improvement, and so on and so forth. Okay. So let's look at the two foundations of the standardization and the stability. So if we look into that, these are characterized by methods like 5S and total productive maintenance for stability and standard operations, and Kaizens for standardization. Okay. So 5S and TPM make the stability, standard operations and Kaizen make the standardization. Stability comes first. 5S helps in streamlining operations and making it stable, while the TPM helps in ensuring high availability of equipment. Okay. On the other hand side, the standard operations on are built on the 5S activities. Some even say that what you do in the 5S and the fourth step standard also extends into standardization over here, and Kaizens over here actually assist in improving as well as streamlining the operations in the standard way. So this is the base for stability and standardization in lean manufacturing. Okay. This I have just put up for the reference over here. The roof, as I said, customer focus basically means customer satisfaction, which leads to the business success. And the collaborations over here can be established in a lean house only when you have the respect for the people. This is a very crucial component as part of the lean manufacturing. If we don't respect and if we don't honor our workers or our people, then the customer satisfaction will not come through. None of the systems will actually happen, because all the systems in the lean manufacturing are supposed to be driven by the workers and the shop floor workforce rather by the management. Okay. So this is just as a baseline I've tried to put it over here. Now, when we look into the 5S, this, or rather the lean overall in the lean context 5S, this basically helps in stabilizing the process, standardizing it, and even sustaining the process through its 5 S's. Okay. We will examine each of these steps very quickly in one slide and try to understand that. Okay. So the 4 M's, the famous 4 M's, man, machine, method, and material. Okay. These are the core into any manufacturing. They have to be stable enough to support the standardization of the work method. If any of these 4 methods or my 4 components are not stable, I don't have the regular availability of manpower, my machines are not available on a regular basis, breakdowns are very heavy, my methods are not producing the effective output, quality is becoming an issue, or the material is not of the right quality or is not available in time, then I cannot achieve any kind of a standardization. So to improve further, stability is important, and that's where the 5S works upon these 4 areas and helps you to bring in stability. Okay. Whenever we talk about the stability, I would even include the training gaps. When we have the manpower, are they trained? Are they skilled enough? Can they really, address what is required on the shop floor on their own? So that also would be covered as part of the these 4 M's over here in stabilizing. Once the stability is accomplished, the best known and demonstrated work method can be standardized. Okay. This becomes the baseline for evaluation and future improvement. And there is no point in standardizing the process if the standard is not sustained. So once you have got the stability, you have established the standardizations, then we go on to, sustenance mode over here. So the management practices and follow-ups must be modified to appropriately sustain the gains achieved by the standardization. And in the lean manufacturing, the implementation of process stability, standardization, and improvement practices on the shop floor become very tightly integrated than what traditionally everybody assumes. People assume that I can stabilize the process independently, I can do the improvements into one area and then continue to work on the other area without stability, but that doesn't happen in reality. So on the shop floor, these 3 things, the stabilization, the standardization, and sustenance, are very tightly integrated into lean manufacturing. Okay. Also, when we implement the lean practices, we should not be randomly implementing them. Rather, we should adapt and execute based upon some kind of a systematic pattern and a well thought out strategy over here. Okay. So a quick primer even on the lean practice also. If we look back, lean was born out of the manufacturing processes, and it encourages the practice of continuous improvement and is again based on the fundamental idea of respect for people. So if you remember on the lean of House of Lean, I had one slide where we said respect for people is very, very vital for the lean implementation. There are 5 principles of lean manufacturing which are considered as a recipe for improving the workplace efficiency. And these 5 principles are: define value, map value streams, create flow, establish pull, and pursue the perfection or work towards the perfection. Let's quickly look into each of them and then try to understand them. Okay? So let's take the first one, specify value. The first principle is about defining value from the customer perspective and express value in terms of the specific product or services. Okay? The second after that is the map the value stream. Okay? The second principle is identifying and mapping the value stream, covering all value added and non-value added that brings a product or service to the customer. If your value stream is not clear and you are not doing all the value added, non-value added activity towards a single goal of delivering a quality product and service to the customer, you will not achieve anything. So lean principle number 2 focuses on creating, mapping the value streams. The third one comes in is establishing the flow. This one talks about how the continuous flow of products, services, and information from end to end through the process has to flow. And once you have a flow of this, product, service, and information, then that's where you can service your customer far better. The fourth one is implement pull. Now, it's a given thing when we go into the lean manufacturing and as a process also, that until and unless we have the downstream customer or the downstream process identifying the need, the upstream process can do nothing much. Okay, so if I want to do the cooking and I don't have the ingredients for that, I cannot cook. So the process integration and the linkages between the process is very important. The one process has to pull from the other process. Okay? So actual demand will always pull the products or services through the value stream. So that's the fourth principle of the lean. The fifth principle is work towards the perfection. This means that completely eliminate the wastage. So all the activities which you carry out create only value for the customer by some kind of a breakthrough, innovations, or continuous improvement projects. There should not be any non-value added activity which you perform, right? So if that happens, then you have got a perfection and everything is producing some kind of the value for the customer. So these are the fundamental lean principles. Now let's look back and say that how can we map the lean principles to the 5S? So if you remember, we have the sort, set in order, shine, standards, and sustain. Sorry, I could not adjust this slide in time to show this more clearly. So I'll just walk it through. Sort is actually equivalent to defining the value. So whenever we do the sorting, we actually look back and see that whether this particular product, what we have sorted and identified, is going to add any value or not, or is it a non-value added kind of stuff. So we will sort based upon the value. Then we do the sort set in order. That means that we map it as a value stream and say that where this product is supposed to fit, where this particular process or activity is supposed to fit, and then accordingly we place them in an appropriate place. The third thing is shine, and that's where we tie it down to the create the flow. That means we ensure that the systems are in a way working so smoothly that the flow is enabled over here. The fourth one comes in as standardize. That means if my process is the standard, so it should be creating a demand and it should be able to establish a pull. So my standardized processes will establish the pull, and that's how the fourth principle of lean will get mapped over here. The fifth one, sustenance or sustain, will be equivalent to the work to perfection. That's where we want that every practice we have established is continuously happening, it is continuously improving upon, and it is self-sustaining, which is nothing but working towards the perfection. So these are the mappings between the 5S and the lean principles, which we will use and then talk more in detail. Okay. So let's talk about now that how can we apply the 5S for productivity. And while we do that, Maybe we will also talk about that what are the lean principles we have applied here, how do they work, and how do they go on. Okay. I would be taking up an example of one of our customers, which is a textile process house. And for a long time, they have been facing a problem of stagnated revenues for several reasons. The reasons could be multiple. They also have a customer base which is equally divided between the domestic customers and the international customers. And of course, their desire is to improve the international business because it brings in the better revenues and also the top line. Okay. They have also identified that they have a very low capacity utilization of machines. And this has been primarily because of frequent breakdowns, large changeover times of one product to another product on a machine, search time for the material, and so on and so forth. So there have been several reasons which they have been thinking and talking about that why there is a low capacity utilization of the machine. What has happened over here, which is the most worrying part, is that this whole process of low capacity utilization and stagnated revenue has been going on for so many years that everyone has taken this as the only possible, or rather the best possible situation, and they've resigned to the fact that this is what happens. There's nothing better which can be done beyond it. Okay, so everyone has kind of accepted it as a current situation being the best. Now, obviously, that's not what the lean will talk about. Lean definitely will not stop at saying that I get satisfied that what I've achieved is best. So there is definitely some discussion that takes place, and there is a call to action. And the call to action is basically coming in and saying that why don't we use some lean manufacturing tools? Why don't we do some diagnostic study and try to understand that what exactly is happening over here? Okay. So so there is a first thing which comes up is that there is a need for stability. Now, we talked earlier also that if there is a continuous frequent breakages, downtimes on the machine, there are various losses and wastages going on, the manpower availability is not consistent, or even if the manpower is available, the competency level or the knowledge level is low, methods are not appropriate, then your improvements, you cannot bring them in, because it's very difficult to bring in the improvement till these factors start stabilizing. So stabilizing the organization becomes the first priority. Okay, and these issues of higher machine downtime, labor shortages, training gaps, quality issues, variations in methods, or even sometimes even the personalized way of production has to be addressed first. So that becomes the first area of focus. Okay, so what is done is that there is a diagnostic study which is taken up. Some diagnostic is done. There are some work studies and other industrial studies carried out. And these things identify various methods to be improved, what areas have to be standardized, what is the quantification of the different losses and wastages so that you can focus upon them. And you also measure out the various activities which you carry and the time taken to perform them and so on and so forth. So some diagnostic has to be carried out, and that's what the work is done over there. Some diagnostic is done, and the losses, wastages, activity times, everything is quantified and at least identified properly. Okay. Now once that is done, then they start along with the 5S. So to bring in the stability into the organization, as the lean advocates, the 5S is chosen to implement the approach. 5S is taken rather as an approach to implement the stability into the organization. Okay. So so this 5S implementation had to be initially designed, and they decided that they will cover all the production areas, but they will abstain from any commercial activity areas. So they will not move into any back-end activities which support the production, but rather focus on the hardcore production areas. Okay. They also defined the various zones. So all the production areas were divided based upon the processes carried out over there, integrity between the processes, leadership available, and the activities performed onto those zones. And as this illustration says that these are the kind of the different zones identified. This basically localizes the efforts to be implemented over there, and it helps in controlling them effectively. Obviously, the zonal leaders had to be identified, and the zonal leaders had to come from the same existing team. They were not the new guys, or they were not the external people imposed into the implementation. Okay. First step which was taken up was that each shop floor leader and workmen, they had to be trained on the 5S and oriented on the lean principles. These trainings included the 5S orientation, its purpose, its benefits, its activities, its goals, its design approach, and so on and so forth. And it also focused in clarifying to the people that the 5S will be used for the wastage control, infrastructure improvement, performance, as well as productivity improvement. So it was made very clear that it is not just for keeping the workspace clear, clean, and neat. No, it was way beyond that, and it was made very clear upfront into the training itself. Okay. Now, let's take the first activity. After the designing was done, a lot of criteria were identified, the value, defining the value mechanisms were identified, and the studies were understood, the focus areas were defined. The first activity which started happening was the sort. So now let's look the sort in reference to the lean. So sort, as we said earlier, is connected to defining value of everything. So any business over a period of time will always end up with accumulated valued and non-valued material, activities, processes, and so on and so forth. This accumulation, as it starts increasing and it starts gathering the pace, the losses and the conflicts on the shop floor will start increasing, because more unwanted material will always create some kind of a conflict over there. Unproductive processes or unproductive methods will always lead to some conflicts. So that's what this starts doing. So similarly, once on the other side, once you have removed the unwanted material and activities and processes, then you also get the visibility into what else can be done. So as you start assigning the value to everything, you also start identifying that what is not valuable. And that something which is not valuable, you can very clearly red tag them, you can take them out, and you can remove them or even eliminate them. So that becomes very easy to do. So sorting process along with the lean principle becomes the first step. What was done? We physically sorted through all the materials, tools, components, etc. We also assigned value to each of them. And this value was on the simple term saying that it is needed, it is rarely used, or not needed. Okay. We didn't go into the complex way of defining it out. Okay. We had already done the work studies, which had also identified a lot of non-value items, which were unusable, damaged, rejected, scrapped, or also it had also identified a lot of non-value activities like transportation, idle time, repeat actions, and certain non-value processes, which were like the rework, wait, and so on and so forth. So all these work studies and sorting activity actually helped us to very clearly demarcate between the value and the non-value, and all the non-value was kept aside. So the next logical step was, by default, remove all non-values by red tagging them and take them away. Okay. So removing the non-value has two major impacts. One, it reduces the clutter and unwanted efforts on the shop floor, and it also identifies a shorter path to higher value achievement. So when I have got a lot of methods into my process which are not productive, and if I can remove them, then that also leads to higher value achievement in a faster and a shortest possible way. So that's what it had done. We removed all the non-physical, non-value material physically. We put the resolution plans in motion for the non-value activities and processes, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, having removed the non-value activities, it was also important that we now map all the activities. So it was also very important that we map all the valuable material, activities, and processes into a woven system, into a single value stream, so that the contributions start improving. Okay. Once you do this, once you streamline all the activities and processes and material, this becomes better organized, and even the areas of improvement start becoming highly visible to you. Okay. So as a next step, we mapped all the materials, methods, machines into value stream maps. There were multiple maps which we created. Okay. We identified how to store and manage material and machines, what methods and activities to improve upon, how to better deploy man, and then we also identified training needs of workforce for the same. This basically led to the right storage areas and systems for keeping valued material in proper manner. We identified all the right storage areas and systems. We used the material flow, Kanban, and so on and so forth to determine the right storage location and inventory levels. We did the activities like multiple trips to bring material. These were replaced with better material transportation system to bring more material in one go, which again reduced the non-value activity. And for this, again, we drew the spaghetti diagrams and we identified that where the unnecessary transportation is taking place and why. And we carried out certain kaizens, which helped us to improve and then reduce our non-value activities. For the non-value processes like reworks and rejections, we identified over there that there were a lot of machine issues. There were machine setups were not done properly, setup and adjustments were not done in a correct manner. Methods of operating the machines were not proper. So all these things we started doing certain quality circles, and we also did the SMAD or the changeover methodology to reduce the non-value processes. Okay. Then we also established the visual management and controls, because 5S cannot be implemented without the visual management and controls. Visual management and 5S go hand in hand together. So when we did all these things, it all helped us in building the proper value streams with a minimal non-value situations. So we reduced variety of the non-value activities happening and the material lying around, and improved upon the method, which helped us to streamline our values. Okay. The next one was that having done that, we had to get into the Shine. And if we look from the lean perspective, Shine maps to the creation or establishing of the flow. A good flow is achieved only when the blocks are removed. So even if you take a water stream, if it is stopped somewhere with some boulder or some stones or something, the water will stop flowing. So you need to remove the blocks. We also ensured that there is a high availability of the equipment, material is in the right place, we trained the manpower, and overall we created a smooth flow on the shop floor. Okay? So that was the next thing which Shine requires. Shine also requires that you do it in a way that it helps you to boost your production and also improve the quality. So if a good flow has been maintained and machines have been made available and manpower has been trained, obviously the production will boost up and also the quality will improve. So that's what the Shine does. What we did over here, we carried out a lot of machine audits. We identified what were the root causes for the frequent breakdowns. We used a lot of problem solving techniques, QC tools, statistical tools, data collection, and did the root cause analysis and so on and so forth, so that we could identify the core causes and remove them and ensure that the breakdowns reduce. After that, we also established a maintenance budget and the preventive maintenance plans, so that going forward, there is a good preventive maintenance plan in place to reduce the breakdowns of the machine while running. Okay. Then the maintenance team was also given the technical training so that they could understand and improve the machine availability and its performance. When we did all these things, this helped in creating a smooth flow of value streams with the higher availability of the equipment. So that was the Shine part of it. And if you notice over here, the Shine here didn't mean that we just clean the workplace or clean the machines. It was a complete effort to ensure that my value stream is now smoothly flowing. So the cleaning is done to ensure a smooth flow of the entire stream. So that is what we did. The next one which we did was the Standardize. Okay. So if you look back, Standardize from the lean perspective, okay, it is nothing but an established pull mechanism. Once flow is created, it is easy to establish pull via standardized activities and processes, and each standard process demands other process to perform. So this is what the standardization kind of helps us. So what we did over here, we established SOPs for everything. Work standardization was done against revised value streams. activity norms were identified in work studies, SOPs were established. We also set up the regular data collection mechanisms. Training was given to all again on how the work standardization was done, what the new SOPs were, what the better work methods were established, and so on and so forth. Standard work activities were started to identify more changes in the system. And when a process stopped, it also identified that what other process was inefficient, and that again led us to the further improvement into it. We also established, worked upon it and coordinated central planning with decentralized decision. This became important, and this once established helped us in establishing the pull system more effectively. Okay. It's very important that we have a coordinated central planning while the decision making is decentralized on the shop floor. If we have opposite, that is, I take a decision, but all my people have their own plans and they work in their own manner, it will not work. If the plan is one and everyone works towards it, takes the independent decisions to make it happen as has been planned, then things work far better. Okay? So this is what again we established over there. The last one was the sustain. And if we again look from the lean perspective, sustain or sustenance would mean that we are pursuing the perfection all the time. This will mean that standardized processes and activities, they will always ensure the effective pursuits of perfection, and establishing practices to sustain the improvements achieved as well as continuous improvement movement is also very important to sustain the efforts. Okay. So again, we did several things to ensure that we work to perfection. We established dashboards to monitor processes, activity, and material for the value generated. Dashboards focused on summing up the man, machine, method, and material effective efficiencies and the value addition. We established the daily work management practices, culture of a continuous improvement, and the Kaizen and quality circles. And we put a focus on measuring value created and continuous improvement. Instead of measuring the losses and wastages, the focus shifted out to see that how the value has been created and how much. Okay, so this became our part of the sustenance practices over here. What was the result? If we look back at the result, we could achieve two important factors over here. One, we could improve the employee productivity, which is we had lesser non-value activities being performed. We had the lesser wastages and rework happening. Equipment availability had increased. There was lesser fatigue in the workers because the work methods had improved over here. Everybody had a better knowledge because we had trained them up on the better processes. And everybody now was conscious of the fact that they have to drive it. So the self-monitoring got established as a core lean principle into the organization. So this was the first thing which led to higher productivity in the employees. The second thing which happened is that there was a change in the management approach. Now the management started talking about fact-based decisions supported by the real-time data instead of unsubstantiated feedback. Earlier, the managers would come up and say that ye nahi ho raha hai, that is happening, this is not working, and they would take the action based upon that. But now it became a fact-based decision because there was a data available, because the systems had thrown up now what value each process was adding, and they could take the right decision. They also implemented the decentralized decision making and empowered the team along with the empowerment actually started happening now with the central planning taking place. Okay, so not only the decentralization took place, team also got empowered to take the decision, and they all worked towards the central planning. And the last thing which started happening was that the regular reviews of processes, activities for value generated became the focus area. So this is how the management change also took place over here. So what did we achieve out of this as the benefits? We definitely, achieved quite a lot based upon this. We could see that, the international business actually started contributing up to 65% from the 50%, which was earlier. And this also ensured that there were higher margins. Companies started improving its top line as well as the bottom line. The on-time delivery ratio, which was very low earlier, started becoming 95% plus. This brought a lot of confidence and satisfaction in the customer. And this was achieved via the lesser equipment breakdowns, elimination of the non-value added activities, processes, establishing pull systems, and so on and so forth. Quality ratio improved as well to 90% plus. And that is where the various tools we use for the root cause analysis, quality circles, and so on and so forth helped us to identify the reasons for quality and then improve the quality delivery. The material losses were reduced by 45%, and the workforce attrition went down by 60% because the workforce felt that there was a better work environment, there was a good working culture, and there was a respect to them, which ensured that the attrition came down. Now, when you have a competent workforce coming in regularly without any kind of a break, your stability in the organization starts coming in. So now you can see that, there are a lot of stability which has been brought in the organization. So this is what we could achieve over here. There were also a lot of intangible benefits which started coming in. First, there was a culture of maintaining healthy and clean work environment that got established. There was now a new culture of looking at the value addition of every action being performed. It was no longer just by saying that, there's no value addition, means let's just do something. No, every action had to have some value addition, and that became a strong culture. Everything became more organized, more data driven, and more systematic, and that itself had its own plus points overall. There was a better visibility in operations and proactive actions by all involved, and all this helped in reducing the work fatigue, indiscipline in the workforce, and various conflicts which were earlier taking place on the shop floor. So these are some of the other benefits which started coming in as these practices started taking root into the organization. Okay. So if you look back overall, in the end, when we strategically planned the 5S implementation, this led to huge stability in operations and organization visibility via the increased on-time delivery, higher quality, higher machine availability, and productivity. Okay. So, and that was our focus, that how do we bring the stability into the organization. Okay. This also led the foundation for implementation of the total productive maintenance system, which can further ensure the better machine availability and higher production with the superior quality. And standardization of the operations and culture of continuous improvement also got established, which essentially means that the lean principles were firmly ingrained into the team. Now, when you do all this kind of the things, operations become very stable, they become standard, the standardization starts taking place, the respect for the people comes in, the work culture starts changing, then productivity is nothing but natural to go up with these kind of the changes. So productivity went up by default along with this kind of the changes over here. So if we summarize it back and if we talk about it in the end, what happened is that we should always remember is that 5S is a very important tool, not just for a clean workplace, but for improving overall productivity. Okay? It primarily ends up creating a stability in the organization and lays foundation for the further improvement. Each level, if done correctly, it will always help in reducing the wastages and losses in all areas. And it just doesn't, lead to the material or space free up, but it also helps in improving the processes and activities. 5S will always help in identifying inefficiencies and the non-value added activities in the system. Okay? So if you do it correctly, you will always identify what are the non-value added activities, not just the material, not just the component, but even the activities and processes as well. Okay? 5S, it has to be done along with multiple lean tools in concurrent way to remove the inefficiencies and the non-value added activities. Okay? 5S alone doesn't work. You have to use multiple other lean tools side by side. And to implement the 5S effectively, one has to strategize, architect, and plan the 5S implementation in a correct manner. So that is how the 5S has to be implemented. As we saw in our example, we could use the 5S very effectively to improve the productivity at our customer. And 5S also brought a lot of stability into the organization, which also would help in sustaining the productivity levels achieved via the 5S over here. Okay, so that is all for today. I hope that you all got a different dimension of 5S and you may be able to then leverage it in your own organization. Not just to clean up the workspace, but to transform it for the higher productivity. Okay. So thank you everyone for listening in. I hope this session has been useful to all of you. SkillTelligent and Oro University can help you to understand these techniques, practices, and methods more effectively and in a better way by taking up a specific training for your organization. And if required, we can even help in implementing these practices. So thank you once again. And Dr. Makija, if there are any questions, we can then take them now. Thank you.
Sure. So definitely it was a very enlightening session. Like always, whenever you present, it brings a lot of clarity and it invokes some new questions as well. So today also I have a couple of questions
Sure.
received. First thing is that what would be the strategy to design the implementation process of 5S?
Right. Yeah, it is important that you have a strategy, and important part is that you also design for implementation. 5S just cannot be, implemented by going to the place and sorting and then, putting the things around into the different places. You need a strategy. So the first step would be that you should carry out some kind of a diagnostic in your organization, which should help you to identify that what are the areas which you should focus upon and what are the areas which requires a concentrated effort and what methods and activities need to be improved upon. Once that has been done, you should logically divide your work area into the different zones. And these zones should be defined based upon the set of the activities being carried out over there. It should be an integrated activity. It should not be that half activity is being done into one zone and another half in the other zone. You should, club them together. You should also look up at what processes are being carried out and do you have a strong leadership available there to help you into implementation there. Okay. Then what needs to be done is, as part of the design, you should also decide that how you will define the value to everything. What is your value definition mechanism? Okay. So if a value definition mechanism has been defined, then your sorting, segregation, set in order, all these things become easy. And you can also identify that how many value stream maps you need to create. So defining the value, way of defining the values or assigning the values and the value streams you need to focus on become the next step which you need to identify. Okay. You should also focus out that your value creation is high and sequence of actions which you take should be possible to weave into a common value stream. So this has to be part of your design strategy. One important part which I would put in is that when you do this design, you should put in the lean design thinking approach. And if you apply the lean design thinking approach, then your design becomes far better. Okay. If required, we can always help you out into carrying out the 5S design exercise separately, or even hold a detailed training for the same if you require that. So we can always help you about that as well. I think
yes. Sorry. Now there is another question, which is more related to Surat business culture, and the question reads that it is so very difficult to convince the boss about the importance of the concepts like 5S and Kaizen. So how to tackle such mindsets, if you have any advice for one of our audience called Nehal Munshi?
I think any businessman or entrepreneur is driven by the money it can generate or save. Okay. So if you can actually, convert the savings into money value, if you can, put a figure to it or monetize those kind of the benefits and then put a number to it and then go back to your bosses and say that this is what I'll gain out of it, so much money I will save, or this is what will help me to generate more money or it will help me to increase my business in terms of the money and again, increase my bottom line, then probably it will be easy. And everything in the 5S which you do, you can definitely monetize it back. So whether it is a loss which you have eliminated, whether it is a faster turnaround on a particular setup you have done, whether the per machine productivity has gone up, whether the quality ratio has improved, whether the on-time delivery has happened, everything can be monetized back in terms of the new business or money saved into that existing business. So if that approach is taken and talked about, that will definitely help you to
Right. So, and moreover, if Mr. Nehal Munshi fails to convince his boss, he can at least set up your meeting with him, and then
sure, anytime,
he would definitely
anytime, yes,
get the message across.
definitely.
So, another question which I have is that can you implement 5S in a standalone environment, or you need to create a whole ecosystem for implementing 5S?
So 5S as an independent tool can be implemented, but minimum requirement would be that you have to establish the visual management along with it. Because once I do, let's say sorting, I assign a value and then put it into some place, it should be very easy to identify where a particular material is lying, or I have created a separate storage area for a particular type of a material, then it should be again easy to define what the storage is all about and how much quantity is lying and so on and so forth. So visual management has to go along with it. I'll take a second question along with that if you implement the 5S, what kind of the ecosystem you require into this? Should you have an ecosystem rather, and can you establish that along with the 5S together? So I would say that yes, 5S requires an ecosystem. You need to use several tools along with establishing the 5S for an effective implementation. I can do a simple 5S implementation, which will help me initially, but it will not take me forward because I'll not be able to monetize those benefits. To monetize that, I'll have to use the multiple tools, create an ecosystem, which results into elimination of the wastages and losses. Okay. Now, to reduce the wastages and losses, I need to first of all identify them. I need to identify the root causes for those wastages and losses, then develop a solution and then implement them. So if let's take an example that a lot of material is lying rejected. Just tagging them and selling them as the scrap will not help you. In the long run, you will further accumulate the rejected material if the rejection root causes are not known and worked upon. So what will happen is you keep on cleaning the rejection and the new rejection will keep on coming. You have to stop the rejection itself, right? And that's where you would require a lot of QC tools, statistical tools, data collection, RCA to be done. You need to perform certain kaizens. You need to maybe implement a SMAT. Maybe you need to have a changeover, methodology implemented. You need to perform other things also over there, establish your line balancing, so on and so forth, to ensure that there is no rejection happening. If the rejection generation itself stops, then the material accumulation also will stop, and then your 5S will become effective. So it is better if you have a complete ecosystem which focuses on the root cause and eliminate the wastage and all the losses. So I would suggest that 5S implementation should be done strategically, keeping in mind the complete ecosystem, and a complete plan has to be laid out up front itself so that the 5S becomes sticky. That means it remains sustainable and people continue to reap the benefit of 5S. So that's how I would put it.
Sure. So thank you very much. It has really been a very beneficial session. I mean, this is a kind of a tool which does not have any financial implication, but still it has a very positive impact on the bottom line. It makes your bottom line look very impressive, and you can improve the whole economic performance of your business unit just by implementing this tool, which does not have any financial liability. So that's great. So thank you very much, sir. And there's a question for Mr. Kishore that someone wants to know that where can I access this whole presentation after the session is over?
Okay. As a process, after the session is over, we are sharing the presentation with all the participants. Moreover, it is also available the recorded link of the All University Facebook page. You can access on both the pages.
Great. So that's all from our side. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.
Definitely be presenting again on Wednesday next, I suppose. Sure, right?
Next Friday we are doing this.
Next Friday. Great.
Coming Friday, yes. So, just to sum up the session, I thank Atul sir and Vikrant sir, both of you, for being with us. I think two excellent practices any company can use to increase its efficiency while maintaining a quality product are 5S and Lean techniques. And both of these strategies were developed while within the manufacturing industry. However, the principles are applicable to any type of a business and will help only organization that chooses to examine itself and is interested in streamlining its property, processes, and policies for greater efficiency and productivity. In today's webinar, what we have learned, like what are five I's, and brief about the lean manufacturing, full house of lean, application of 5S for productivity. We also saw the case study of actual implementation of 5S in a scientific way, which brought commendable changes and enhanced productivity. And I'm sure the information shared today will certainly help all of us in organizing ourselves and increasing efficiency and productivity. So here we sum up, and just to share with you that we will come up with another webinar on role of supervisor coming Friday, that is 17th of July, same time at 4 o'clock. So I take this opportunity to thank Atul sir for being with us and sharing his wisdom, his knowledge, his experience with us. And I take this opportunity to thank Makita sir for being with us and setting the context. And thanking all the participants for being with us. And here we close the session. Thank you all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.